Hey everyone, this is Jaden from the Super Gamer Bros. I'm just recording this little disclaimer. We've been testing out different mic setups, different recording setups as we record the first few episodes of this podcast. And sadly, not all of them work really well. And today, I don't know exactly what happened with this recording, but the audio, about 8 minutes in, takes a sharp dip in quality and volume. And despite my 3 days of editing experience, I was unable to find a good fix for it. So if it makes the episode, unlistenable to you, then I understand. If not, then I hope you still get some enjoyment out of it, and know that by the next episode it will be improved. And we'll still keep trying different ones until we find one that we are both satisfied with and that you are satisfied with as well. So, sorry again about that, and enjoy the episode. Hey everyone, I'm Jaden.
And I'm Noah.
We are the Super Gamer Bros, and this is the Super Gamer Bros podcast. We're just a couple of brothers who love playing games and love talking about games, so that's what we're going to do. Now, today we are going to talk about what is, in my opinion, one of the greatest games released during the PS4's highly decorated lifespan, and really one of the greatest games of all time, God of War 2018. This game was a marvel in visuals, storytelling, and gameplay. As longtime fans of the God of War franchise, we were both really excited about the prospect of a new game in the series, and the shift in gameplay and setting. God of War offered a fresh new take on Kratos, who is now older and more weary from his life of violence, in a new Norse mythology-themed setting with a whole new group of gods to take on. As we get into it, we're going to talk about some big plot elements, and this game came out just a little over 2 years ago, so we're going to put a big spoiler warning here for anyone who hasn't played this game. Stop listening to us and go play it, or at least watch someone else play it. Then you can come back and listen to us talk all you want.
Right. Alright, so the God of War 2018 game takes place in Midgard. In Norse mythology, Midgard is basically Earth, right?
Yes, I believe so.
I guess the realm. They're like realms, right?
Yeah, it's like, yeah.
Right, and so that's where you start off. You're in just a wilderness, right? You have a little hut, and it's you, your wife, and your dead wife, and your son. Throughout the game, you visit other realms, which was a shock to me. I did not expect to be able to visit so many.
Yeah, I expected that there would be other realms to visit, but they actually, in Norse mythology, I believe there are 9 realms total,
Mm-hmm.
and you go to 6 of them in this game.
Right. Obviously, the ones that you couldn't go to, some were like, I believe there was one that was just like, it's a desolate hellscape, nobody would really want to go there type thing.
Wasn't that Muspelheim?
I
Like
guess
the fireplace
so.
where you do the trials and stuff?
No. I'm thinking of one you couldn't go to. Anywho.
The only one that I know that you can't go to is Asgard.
For obvious reasons.
Yeah. None, like the other 2, I don't know what they're called. I don't know anything about them. You have kind of your main hub area, which is called the Lake of Nine, which is where the portal to the other realms is located.
Which is called
the portal?
The Bifrost.
No, the Bifrost is the thing you use to use the portal.
I thought the Bifrost was the portal.
I thought the Bifrost was the thing. He is the Bifrost.
Okay. Maybe I'm thinking of Thor from Marvel too much.
Yeah.
Anywho, yeah, you use the Bifrost is the key. You get it maybe a quarter away into the game.
I would say less than that.
Less than that.
Like you get that not too long after you meet the Witch of the Woods, I believe.
Oh, because she sends you to go get it.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's your main hub area. There are different areas in Midgard that just all of them kind of branch off from there. And most of them usually kind of circle back around, so this game doesn't have a lot of backtracking in terms of when you're doing exploration and collecting, because if you just keep following the path, you will eventually end up back at the lake.
Right. So as far as the realms go, we have the second realm you visit is Alfheim.
Alfheim.
Right? So Alfheim is the land of the elves, and that is where you go to get the light, is it? Something like that?
Yeah, it's needed.
That's about it. It's not really big in
No,
terms of
it's the second biggest of all the ones you go to story wise, but it's still, I would say, not even half the size of Midgard.
no. Midgard is definitely the biggest and
Oh yeah,
has the most to offer.
yeah.
But Alfheim was very pretty, in my opinion.
Oh, it was
Like
very very
like
pretty.
the foliage and the scenery
Yeah.
and the light off the
Hmm.
water.
Yeah.
Also the setting of like when you're like in the tunnels,
Hmm.
the dark there and the what few light there is, the how that comes off in the shadows and stuff like that. I thought all of that was beautifully crafted.
Yes, very very well done.
Yeah, Alfheim was my favorite world to look at.
Then you also end up traveling to Helheim.
Yeah, which is basically hell,
That's yeah,
right?
it's just hell. It's the underworld in Norse mythology.
This one basically like the map of Helheim is set up like a long
It's
bridge.
just like a long, like
It's
a
like a
long
long
hallway.
hallway,
Yeah,
right?
one long path. A few like areas under slash over that you end up
Right,
that you can discover later in the story. You do go to a different part of Helheim,
right.
but that part is not.
That's pure story related.
Yeah, there's no exploration there. You never see that specific part of it again afterwards.
But it was cool.
But it was cool. And the last realm you travel to, at least story wise, is Jotunheim, the land of the giants, which in this game, much like Helheim, is simply just like a long path. You do go through kind of like a temple, but there are no collectibles here. It's simply just for the final act of the story. And when I played it, I had this big feeling of like hopelessness.
Right. Well, it's the realm of the giants, and you spend the entire game, you're listening to Mimir's stories, and he talks about how sad the giant story is because Odin and the Aesir gods basically hunted down all of the giants and killed them. And you find out that your dead wife was a giant, and
Yeah.
I guess the last giant.
Supposedly, because when you get to Jotunheim, like there is not a single living giant.
Mm-hmm. The whole point of going there was to spread her ashes at the highest peak in all of the realms, and that was at the top of Jotunheim. And it was incredibly visually appealing because you see all the paintings of what happens in the game.
Yeah.
On the walls in these temples, and then even the future, in which we don't know what they mean.
Yeah, I guess it's worth mentioning because I don't know too much about the initial Norse mythology because this game obviously does take a lot of liberties with that. It's something God of War has always done with games, which there's nothing wrong with that. But in this game, the giants have the best way I could describe it is true sight, where they just can kind of see like everything. I don't know, it's really hard to explain. Other than like the giants, there were only two gods who were gifted the sight by the giants, being Mimir and Tyr, the god of war.
Yes.
That's something that I don't know if in actual Norse mythology the giants had, but either way, I think it's very cool.
Well, then, they've always they take the basis of the mythologies that they use and they twist them, to fit their story. So, yeah, there's a lot of parallels, but some things are pretty different. I mean, like, Loki, for instance,
of
that
course.
whole thing is...
In this, the way I kind of took it from the story was Faye, who is Atreus' mother, her plan was, I feel like, in terms of her son, just to find the best person to have that child with, and I kind of took it as Kratos stepped into that story and interrupted it. She was going to end up with, hypothetically, Laufey or just some other unnamed giant. But then Kratos, who wasn't even from that land, popped in and kind of just threw everything out of whack a bit.
Right. I heard people theorize that Kratos is Laufey in Norse mythology. Like, it's the same person, but the story fits him still.
I have not heard that.
No. People, they have all kinds of theories about God of War and what's that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's it for the realms in the story. You do also go to Niflheim and Muspelheim, and we will talk about those later.
Okay.
Both, I think, they're very
fun.
unique.
They're fun.
Yeah.
I enjoyed them.
Very much.
A lot of people complain about them, and they're a bit grindy at times, but I really enjoyed both of those realms.
Yeah, I really enjoyed them.
Because they did not need to include them, and they did.
No, they were very much bonuses, and I imagine that they both would return in future games kind of with the same concepts, if changed a little bit.
So, as we alluded earlier, the basic plot of the game, and this, you start out as soon as you hit start game at the pause menu, the story starts. It's all about this story. This is the game. At its core, it is a story. And this story is about Faye's death. Faye is the giantess who Kratos, after leaving, the remnants of what was Greece and finding Midgard, he married Faye and had a child, Atreus. And so you join in what is maybe, is he 10?
I don't know if his age is ever truly stated.
I don't know that for sure, but let's say it's
he's around that age.
Around that age.
Like I would 10. Say he's definitely not a teenager, so I would say no older than 12, but I don't feel like he was 12. I feel like that is too old.
I agree. And so it starts off with Faye's death. You are cutting down the logs in the forest that she has marked to be used for her pyre, where you burn her, gather her ashes, and she wants them spread at the tallest point in all the realms.
Yeah, and doing so, when you knock all the trees down, you kind of discover that there weren't a lot of monsters and really just interacted with anything where they lived in the woods, and you discover after you chop down that last tree that really like all of the trees she had marked were like the source of the magic barrier that kept anyone from being able to see where they were. You chop down the tree, take it back, do all of that, and then while you're discussing with Atreus at home, there's a knock on the door, which is just absolutely bizarre. Kratos has Atreus hide. He opens the door, and it's this man not wearing a shirt with a bunch of tattoos and a rockin' beard.
This mysterious stranger, as he is titled, he comes to the door and he's asking Kratos, he says something like, I thought you'd be taller. And in your first playthrough of the game, you really think like everything he's saying applies to the fact that Kratos is Kratos, right? He's the god killer. He should be feared because he really destroyed a whole nother religion already. He has more gods under his belt than anybody should.
That is correct. So you fight him, you beat him, you kill him. Typical Kratos stuff. And then it's basically kind of at that point decided for you that you have to take Atreus on the journey. As you travel through the woods, you eventually come across the Witch of the Woods. She sends Kratos and Atreus to Alfheim to secure its light to extinguish this black mist that is blocking their path on the mountain.
Right. Something that kind of threw me off about this game is that everybody you run into is somebody important.
Yeah, I suppose really the only exception to that would be the elves in Alfheim.
That is true. I didn't think about that.
Mm-hmm. And if you look at it, I guess like Rock and Sindri are also not technically gods, but
not technically gods, but still important. They're in mythology.
They are very important.
They made Mjolnir, didn't they?
Yes, they did.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So
they also made the Leviathan axe.
Yes, which we will talk about.
They eventually meet Mimir on the top of the mountain, which they believe this mountain is the highest peak in all the realm, and he tells them no, it's in Jotunheim, but the way it's blocked. While looking for the components to build a portal to Jotunheim, they are attacked by Thor's sons, Magni and Modi.
Yes.
In the ensuing brawl, Kratos kills Magni and Modi flees, and Atreus at this point believes he is mortal, and that belief, counteracted by the just built-in god rage he has in him, causes him to fall ill.
Right. A few things there. The relationship between Kratos and Atreus starts out really, I would say, like, awkward, kind of cringy.
I don't know if I would say cringy, but just, I guess awkward is a good term, because to me it's that Kratos doesn't really know how to be a father.
Right.
Anymore.
You know, he doesn't want to kill this child.
Yeah.
But, so he keeps his past secret from Atreus for obvious reasons, because I feel like when you talk about it, it really makes Kratos seem like a bad guy, right?
Yeah. It's also, like, not really something you could very much just work into a conversation, like, hey, how's your day been? By the way, I killed all the gods of another pantheon
a
few years ago.
Right, of course. Magni and Modi, Thor's sons. Interesting decision to include not Thor, but his son.
I thought it was an interesting decision because the stranger, we didn't say at this point, is Baldur, who is Odin's son as well.
Right.
So Thor's brother,
technically.
Which neither of these three I'd heard of before playing this game.
I did hear about Baldur. I happened to hear something about, like, literally his tale in mythology, and it really, like, gave away what was going to happen in the game, but Santa Monica twisted it around so much that I really didn't, it still caught me by surprise when it happened. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
When Baldur's weakness is discovered and whatnot. But Magni and Modi, I had never heard about. I didn't know Thor had sons. They were, I think it was really smart to put them in because it increases the build-up to Thor in the next game, because now you have beef with Thor.
Yeah, because you can't just start off with Thor and Odin. You know, that's, like, for your first game back, having them be, like, the two bosses, it's like that, there's nowhere you can go from that.
Right.
So, because of Atreus fainting, Kratos has to get back the Blades of Chaos, which is a really cool moment.
Yes, I believe caught everybody by surprise. Right?
Yeah, I did not think that they would be in this game at all.
No. Because I think people would be like, oh, same old God of War, they can't change anything.
Yeah.
But you do go through, like, most of the game before retrieving the blade.
A very big chunk.
And they do a wonderful job of making it so dramatic when you're going to get them, and Athena's there, and all that. And they definitely changed how the blades felt, you know?
Yeah.
And I thought...
it's just, the whole combat system is different.
Oh, of course, But, I mean, like, it's the Blades of Chaos. You know?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's God of War staple right there. But I didn't feel like it was too much of a throwback.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's like, a throwback to his most iconic weapons for over a decade that he's existed. And it was just right. Like, it's really, the game was very light on references to the previous games in the series, which just made the references they did have feel all the more cool.
Right.
Like, if they were just throwing it out, every 5 minutes of, oh, hey, remember the other games? Hey, remember this guy? Like, then it would have, I think, been really, like, felt more like a cash-in thing, or just, just making it just to make some money, but they really, every reference has its purpose, and it all wraps together really well.
Right, it's all meaningful. When they make a reference, it's meaningful. It's about Kratos as a character and how he's developed and learned.
Correct. So then, Atreus is healed.
Mm-hmm. Well, Kratos retrieves the blades and goes to Helheim.
Oh, yes.
Right, and he has to retrieve the heart of a giant, which was just the gatekeeper, right, which was okay. But there he's met with a vision of Zeus, who is in Helheim, I guess, right?
Well, I thought that was more of a...
like a vision?
A vision, not actually
like it's
Zeus.
in Kratos' head.
Yes.
Okay. I think you might be right about that.
Yeah.
Right.
And you retrieve the heart of the gatekeeper, you bring it back, and the Witch of the Woods, who at this point has been revealed to be Freya, the
Vanir goddess.
The goddess of fertility. She's the ex-queen of the Valkyries, ex-wife to Odin. This bitch is like the big bad.
Yeah.
Right? She's a heavy character.
You know, she's jack of all trades.
A jack of all trades. And you didn't know
No.
who you were dealing with. You thought she was just a nice old, not old, she's kind of like middle-aged mom type.
Yeah, very mom.
Mm-hmm. But, you thought she was a nice girl in the woods. You didn't really know what her whole deal was. But as you learn more and more about her, she seems like a scary powerhouse. Like, you don't know what she can do. Right, so, and everybody in this game says, Kratos, you need to tell Atreus that he's a god because it's hurting him that he doesn't know.
Yeah.
So finally, Kratos fesses up and tells Atreus.
Yes, he does.
Iconic scene. How Atreus reacts.
He just becomes a bitch.
He becomes a little bit of a bitch about it. But I mean, he's like, what, a 10-year-old?
Yeah.
Who finds out he's a god.
Yeah.
They did a really good job of making me feel like this is actually an annoying little kid. Like the realism and the immersion in this game. Fantastic. Writing, voice acting, perfect. Yeah. I hated him.
I absolutely hated him. Like, he insults his mom. He kills Modi.
He does.
He just stabs him in the throat, pushes him off a ledge.
Wasn't he begging for mercy?
No, he was not begging for mercy. He was brutally beaten by Thor, because of Magni's death.
Right.
And then he just keeps riling Atreus up, I think, to the very end. Right. And then, yeah, and Kratos is angry at that because Kratos has learned his lesson about not killing unless you have to.
Right. Kratos had his time of being a dick as a god, right?
Yeah.
Shout out to God of War 2, am I right?
And God of War everything.
Well, I mean, like, I feel like in God of War 2, he was really, like, that's when he was the God of War, and he was like, I'm a god now, I'm better than everybody else, And so, he had his time doing that. Atreus was a dick to Brock and Sindri.
Yeah.
Right, and I was upset about that because they were helping us.
Well, I think, more specifically, he was a dick to Sindri because he was complaining about Brock being dirty, and Atreus is just like, listen, blah, 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 you're stupid, your problems are stupid,
just make us care about mortals.
Yeah, just make us our shit and leave us alone. And even Kratos was like, man, that was uncalled for. And Atreus asked him, like, he annoyed you too. And Kratos was like, yeah, but
when I'm a dick, it's cool.
Yeah, he says, like, yeah, but, like, it was just unneeded.
Right.
And then, because of this whole thing, you end up back on the mountain where the portal to Jotunheim is, and Baldur is there, and while attempting to open the portal, go through, Baldur is fighting Kratos. Atreus refuses to listen. He shoots Kratos. The portal gets destroyed. They all end up in Helheim.
Right. As we mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
And here's where you see the vision of Baldur and his mother, who you find out is none other than Freya, aka, the Witch of the Woods, the woman who's been helping us.
Which I think there were hints to this previously, but this is when the game finally just says it.
I was not surprised.
No.
She mentioned, like, having a son multiple times.
Yeah.
And I think Mimir's stuff.
Yeah.
I think a lot of the things he said really hints to this.
He might even outright say it beforehand. I don't remember.
I don't remember either. But he knows, right? He knows about everything.
Yeah.
Right? So this creates an interesting problem because we like Freya. She's nice and she helps us. But Baldur is a dick.
Absolutely.
And he wants to kill us. And so the only way to stop him is to kill him.
Well, he also wants to kill her.
Yes.
Like, he just wants everyone to die.
That is true.
So then they have to get to Jotunheim, they have to find a whole bunch of other stuff, which involves them going inside the belly of Jormungandr, who is the World Serpent.
Right.
Who is introduced much earlier in the game than we mentioned him.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he's really the first god that you meet other than Baldur.
Yeah.
So, super early in the game, but he's always just kind of there.
He doesn't really have an impactful presence.
Yeah. until around this point.
Mostly a cool set piece.
Yeah. While you're inside of him, Baldur actually attacks him, and you end up getting, like, spit out.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have your final fight with Baldur.
Right.
While Freya, who has left her woods to find Baldur, intervenes and tries to stop the fight. She's not very successful. In the fight, Baldur's impenetrable defense is finally broken.
Right, because he strikes Atreus and is impaled by mistletoe. And if you didn't know this, this is because Baldur's whole story is that when he was born, there was a prophecy that foretold his death, and Freya didn't want her son to die, so she made everything in the universe promise not to harm him. And that means, like, the rocks and the grass and all that stuff, like everything, promised not to harm him. And so he couldn't feel anything either. And the only thing she forgot was mistletoe. And in Norse mythology, Loki finds out that mistletoe did not promise not to harm him, right? And he convinces another god. I forget who it is.
It was a blind god.
A blind god.
I remember
yes,
that.
I remember that. He convinces him to fire a mistletoe arrow or a dart or something like that at Baldur, because the gods like to throw things at him because he couldn't be hurt, and for some reason it was funny to do that. And so the mistletoe hits him, and he dies. And so the other god, I think, was blamed.
And I think he was, like, killed by Odin or something terrible.
Right, it was something terrible.
Yes, but in this game, I think it was more of a spell than her having everything promised.
Yes, it was more of like a invulnerability spell.
Yes,
that she puts on him.
Yes, but he does get pierced by mistletoe, which still is what breaks it. Kratos, for the first time in any of the God of War games ever that I can remember, after defeating Baldur, shows mercy. He was choking him out, but then he stops at, like, Freya and Atreus' request, but he tells him, "You will not harm Freya, you will not come after us, or I will kill you." So, of course, Baldur immediately tries to just kill Freya, because that's what he wants, and Freya, as his mom, wants him to be happy, says that she will not stop him. And so Kratos does kill Baldur.
Had to be done.
Very much had to be done.
It had to be done. He was going to kill her, and he did not want that to happen because she did not deserve to die. Now, she gets mad at Kratos for killing her son against her wishes and swears her revenge, which I'm sure will come back to haunt Kratos and Atreus very soon. Most likely in the sequel.
Yeah, really, my only question here is, like, will Kratos have to end up killing Freya, or will they somehow find a way to bury the hatchet?
That's a good question. I really don't know.
Like, I really hope they find a way to move past it, but...
I like her. I would not like to see her die.
Yeah. At this point, Kratos finally tells Atreus his full past. They then go to Jotunheim, find the temples with the murals, discover Faye was a giant, which means Atreus is part giant, part god, and they spread her ashes, and then they go home and go to bed.
Right, and when you go at the end of the game, after you get back to Midgard and you go back to the house and you go to sleep, you wake up in this dream, and, dream maybe sometime in the future, but there's a storm going on, it's very loud, and Kratos and Atreus go outside, and there's a man standing there with a hammer. And we all know this to be Thor, right? Giving a very promising hint as to who the next game's villain will be. Or maybe the first fight, I'm not quite sure.
Yeah.
Either way, I'm very excited. Because when we kill Thor, we will probably get Mjolnir.
Very, very likely.
Very, very likely. And I'm so excited for that. Something about being able to get Mjolnir in games really gets me.
Well, it's just, it's Mjolnir. It's like the most famous hammer in existence.
Right, of course. I mean, I don't know how different it's going to be from the Leviathan axe at this point, which is pretty much a similar weapon except with a different elemental. elemental.
Well, it's the very thing. It
factor.
seems like elemental weapons are kind of the focus, at least of the first game, if not the whole series, because Leviathan Axe was ice, the Blades of Chaos were fire,
right?
So this would be lightning.
Mm-hmm.
So it is going with the theme that maybe it's a Norse mythology theme. Maybe there's a lot of elemental weapons in Norse mythology, or maybe it's just something that Santa Monica created as a theme, or could just entirely be coincidence. I don't know, but it's still a very cool potential.
Of course.
There are not a lot of characters in this game, but I kind of like that because all of them are important.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the game never feels like it's overloaded with characters, which, like, previous God of War games kind of have that. Like, God of War 3, like, just so many characters.
Right.
And
that's the problem, is when you have so many characters, none of them have any depth.
Yes.
When you have less than 10 characters, all of them are pretty fleshed out with their own arcs.
It's like when you have less than 10 characters for a story that takes at least 20 hours to play through, you gotta flesh them out.
Right.
And this game does that very well.
Of course.
For starters, we have Kratos, portrayed in this game by Christopher Judge, who did a fantastic job.
Best upgrade in voice acting.
I had no problem. I like Kratos.
No problem.
Yeah, I like the
his
old one. But, man, this guy is fun to listen to.
Of course.
His
voice is amazing.
Yeah, I could just listen to him talk about whatever all day.
Right.
I also really enjoyed Kratos in this game over any other God of War game because they finally give him some progression.
Of course, he had wonderful dialogue.
Yes.
Great lines.
Mm-hmm.
He really seems like an old, wise Kratos.
Yeah.
As opposed to the enraged, lunatic we had before.
Yeah, absolutely.
But
like
different games.
My biggest complaint about all the other God of War games was Kratos was mad, angry, revenge. Pretty much his whole thing. Nothing else in his character at all. There was no depth, there was no sort of progression, no growth. Even in God of War 3, they started to do that. And then in the final boss fight just said, nah, it's just Kratos. There's no change in that. And so the second this game was announced with that first little gameplay trailer, instantly I thought, oh man, he's changed. He's different now. This is going to be great. And the character of Kratos in this game very much lived up to all of my expectations.
Of course, sequels are always tricky. They can make a character better or worse. And, we did love Kratos before, for everything he was in the games. But now he is a character. Yeah. He stands up there with the Joels, and everything that happened in this game really made me look at Kratos with a better feeling.
Yeah.
I just believe that everything was better for him, and they have it together.
Yeah. It's like in this one game alone, even starting, years after the end of the previous game, skipping kind of all that character progression he had in that time span, he has more progression and depth in this game than any of the previous games. Potentially even combined.
Right, you mean from start to finish in this game?
Yes.
He's a different person.
Yes, he learns. He learns. He becomes closer with his son. He gets fatherhood more under control. He gets more control of his anger and his rage. He learns to be merciful and compassionate. It's things that he never did before, pretty much ever.
Right. Speaking of character development, God, Atreus is a roller coaster.
Oh man,
in this game. He starts out as the son who just wants his father to be proud of him and to do things right.
That is correct.
And then he is the douchebag god kid who thinks he's better than everybody. And then he, I feel like by the end of the game he really matures, which is weird because this all doesn't take place in a huge timeline, right? At the end of the game, I feel like he matured so much from where he started.
Yes, they become closer. He definitely becomes more mature. It's like you said at the beginning, he wanted to be good enough and was so frustrated that the fact that he wasn't really. and then he discovered he was a god, and just, like, he reacted like how I would expect any 10-year-old to react knowing they're a god,
Right.
but I still hated him for it.
That's realistic. It was
very realistic. But by the end, I was like, okay, he's starting to get it now.
Mm-hmm.
He, thankfully, because I think Kratos ends up being such a good influence.
Yeah.
Which is odd. He seems to get it and kind of understands things a little better. I'm very curious to see how their relationship progresses in future games.
Their relationship as father and son, as well as combat partners.
Correct.
And we'll get to that. Oh, one of my favorite characters in this game.
One of the best characters ever.
Games do a lot to try these days, this generation especially. Games do a lot to add this lore and try to make their games deeper. And usually it's like text files,
documents,
and very few people read all the documents and everywhere, But the inclusion of a head attached to Kratos' waist that knows everything about Norse mythology and will just tell it to you as you're rowing along, genius. And he's he's funny, he's charming, he makes you laugh, he tells great stories, and he has a great voice.
Just was so entertaining to the point where whenever I would arrive at my destination, if he was in the middle of a story, I'd wait to get out of the boat. Because he will continue it later.
Yeah,
like when you get back in, he'll say like, "Oh, well, as I left off." But I just I was like, I want to hear the story now. Keep going, please.
Right, Mimir was when you first encounter him, he's stuck in a tree.
Correct.
And to take him with you, Kratos cuts his head off and ties his head to his belt
at his request.
At his request, this is what he wanted.
And you take him to Freya, and Freya reanimates his head, and he is basically I don't know if he's like the god of knowledge, but he's known as the man who knows everything.
Right, because he has true sight.
Yes. His stories are just so fascinating. He also very much is a developed character in that when he tells all these stories about Odin and Thor, like murdering giants and stuff, he usually had a hand in them because he was Odin's advisor for a long time before he pissed him off and ended up in the tree. And he really regrets everything he did, basically up to the point where he became a head.
Right. Every time he talks about the giants and the stories and whatnot, he's always sad.
Yeah.
You hear the sadness in his voice. He's so sad about how he helped basically the extermination of a whole race.
Yeah.
Right.
And a very, very good race.
Yes, good natured.
Yeah.
All, the giants, it's said that all they did was good. Yeah. You never hear anything bad about them.
Yeah. It just made me so sad when I finally completed this game because I knew I hadn't heard everything. There had been no repeated stories, and I was like, I guess I'm not going to play this anymore, but I just want to hear more. And it was definitely the most intriguing and most well done way to introduce the lore of a world that I've encountered.
Oh yeah. Another interesting thing in the boat is when Kratos tells his stories, he will, Kratos tells stories sometimes.
Sometimes.
He tells the story of his life, but changes the characters. I know there's one he talks about, he's a horse. A horse is a metaphor for Kratos in his story.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't remember exactly what story he was telling, but I think that's a very interesting way to twist his events stories.
Well, it's he did that because he didn't want Atreus to grow up like him, which is understandable. And I think by the end of the game, he finally learns that if he doesn't want Atreus to be like him, then he needs to teach him not to be like him.
Right.
Which involves Atreus having to know what he did wrong. And knowing that Kratos is I did this, but I regret it. I was a bad person. You don't do that because, it's not the right thing.
Better, right?
Yeah. Curious to see if they do keep this same kind of concept in future games, if Kratos maybe tells his stories differently. And even, I would hope that they do, because this game is both a sequel and a sort of reboot.
A soft reboot.
So the story is not exactly the same as it was on the initial series. And I'm curious to see what differences there are, and I feel like that would be a good way to introduce kind of those differences as well, as have Kratos tell stories of, oh, I did this and I did this.
Right. We know that the God of War canon at this point is pretty construed.
Yeah.
It's had quite a few twists and turns. Some retcons here, some plot changes there. But I feel like they're getting it together now.
Yeah, so there are relatively not a lot of antagonists in this game either.
It comes with a small character pool.
Yeah. First off, you have Baldur, the mysterious stranger, invulnerable to damage, and you end up fighting him 3 times in the story. Although one of them is more a series of quick time events than an actual fight, he's basically just pissed off at everything. He wants revenge on his mom for making him invulnerable to everything, so he can't feel anything.
Now, Baldur, when he first appears, you really think, who is this scrawny guy? Because he is scrawny looking, right? He's small, especially standing next to Kratos, who is like a giant of a man, and but his tattoos and his beard were cool. This is true.
Yes.
And when he backhands Kratos, right?
Backhands him over a house.
No, not that part. When he first backhands him, and it's like a really light backhand. And you just hear like, oh shit, this guy is dead.
Yeah.
You're like, Kratos is gonna kill this man. And he punches Kratos a little bit, and Kratos finally is like, alright, now you're getting it. And he punches him pretty lightly and just knocks him back. I mean, not lightly, but light for Kratos. Knocks him back like maybe a few feet. And then when Baldur, he's like, it's my turn, and he punches Kratos, and Kratos flies over the house, right? The point is, the fights, especially the boss fights, the word I would use to describe them is theatrical.
Very theatrical. This fight itself, you're fighting him in a forest. You can hit him through trees. He can hit you through trees.
You're picking up trees. You're throwing statues on him.
Yeah.
He's throwing statues at you.
Yeah. The God of War series has always had theatrical boss fights, but this one really took it to like an art form.
Yes.
In the terms of even the boss fight itself is very theatrical, whereas in previous games, like the quick time events, like the starts, ends, midpoints of a boss fight were all theatric. The actual boss fight itself, which is normal God of War.
It's normal God of War gameplay. But in this, the boss fight itself, every single moment is whoa, I'm punching him through trees. He's flying across there. I'm flying across here. We're ramming him through rocks and the house and all kinds of stuff like that. And that's happening during the fight. And it's not a quick time event per se.
Yeah.
That happens in every boss fight in this game.
Yeah.
And that is such a cool inclusion. Every single moment of this game is so thought out.
Yes.
Especially like the final fight with Baldur.
Yeah.
Because that is where Kratos and Atreus, you're like, Kratos hits him and then Atreus hits him.
Yeah,
and
they get their fighting style like locked down.
Yes,
right.
They really got it together. They're fighting as one.
Yes.
And that really makes me excited for what the future of Kratos and Atreus fighting together could bring.
Yeah.
Especially as Atreus ages. If he ages, we don't know.
Yeah.
We don't know what that's going to bring.
Then, very small comparatively, I'm actually kind of sad they're not going to be back. Magni and Modi.
They were fun in their own way. I also thought they were a little...
Well, fun fact. The voices of Magni and Modi.
I know.
Troy Baker and Nolan North.
I read that somewhere very recently. And that surprised me. I didn't know that.
Yeah, I did not either. I thought their boss fight was very cool. It's the first time that I can think of in God of War where you're specifically fighting 2 different full bosses. You have a lot of you have a lot of fight a boss with a bunch of minions, but this is just 2 dudes, 2 health bars. You have to get them both down. And they also had very interesting, kind of those midpoints of the fight.
Yeah.
Where they would use the snowblind, where Modi would take his sword and hit Magni's shield, or the other way around, and basically, kind of like a flashbang, it would just blind you for a second, and then you don't know where they are. You have to spin in a circle with your shield out and stop them from hitting. And, as the boss fight progresses, eventually it's like one of them will, like, charge you and then back up, like, feint, and the other one will attack from a different direction. Very unique. And, yeah, the only thing I'm sad about is that both of them are, because I would have loved to have seen them more in the future.
Mm-hmm.
You fight a dragon.
You do. Ugh, the dragon.
Yeah, there are a total of 4 dragons in this game. 3 of them are part of a side quest. You don't fight them, they're chained, you free them. That's kind of all that happens to them. Maybe they'll come back in future games, but while you're climbing the mountain, you just end up fighting a dragon.
It's insane. The whole fight, again, is incredibly theatrical, and the way you beat the boss is by using your newfound lightning arrows to, or I guess, I don't know, I can't remember if you use the lightning arrows to do it.
Did you use the light arrows?
No, it's definitely lightning that causes the red rocks to explode.
Oh, yeah, that's the lightning.
But the dragon has, Kratos eventually shoves a giant piece of rock into this dragon's cheek, was it? Or jaw?
Same difference.
Same
I think
difference.
It was the cheek, but...
But anywho. And Atreus shoots it, and this rock explodes. And so the dragon's mouth explodes open, and Kratos is just standing there while the dragon falls in his direction, and he's standing in between the mouth when it hits the ground. Amazing shot.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of points in this game just make you go, wow, that was awesome.
Yeah. There's not much to say about it. It wasn't like a character. It doesn't talk. From this fight, I would assume that dragons in this world are not intelligent.
Yeah.
In terms of, like, actually being able to speak and everything. I'm sure they're intelligent because they're dragons. And then, probably what is, to me, the most underwhelming group of enemies, the Dark Elves. Specifically, like, the Dark Elf Commander.
Yeah, he was just kind of like a buffed up version of the regular Dark Elves, right?
Yeah, pretty much. To me, he more serves as, like, a thematic enemy in terms of there's this war going on between the Light Elves and the Dark Elves. Atreus can understand their language, Kratos cannot. And when you kill him, he basically says, like, you made a big mistake. Which, to me, like, really it was the whole point of that entire thing was just Atreus learning kind of that, like, in war, in most facets of life, there isn't really a definitive right.
It's not black and white.
Yeah.
It's not really like a good and evil. It's I believe I'm right and you believe you're right.
Yeah. Yeah, so to me, it very much exists purpose-wise for that. It's not like you encounter them on Alfheim, then you never encounter them again. They don't, like, come to Midgard looking for revenge or anything. Very small kind of isolated group of enemies, but still cool.
It was cool. Fighting in the dark.
Very interesting.
Yes. But like you said, it wasn't very impactful fight. Mm-hmm. Like, you didn't really feel anything emotionally.
Yeah, it was definitely, like, it was also, like, the least theatric of the fights.
Of course. But, not every fight can be the most amazing, perfect fight out there. Seeing a lot with mini-bosses, too, who are all kind of, like, reskins of each other, like the trolls and such. You fight a bunch of those. What are they called? The ones with the big cement blocks?
I thought those were the trolls.
Are those the trolls? I thought the trolls were the more
ogres
ones. So I think those might be trolls and ogres.
No, I think the trolls I think ogres are the beast-like ones, trolls are the intelligent ones.
Okay. Either way,
like, I have the pop figure of the one with the stone. So I should know what it is, but I really don't.
I think those are the trolls.
I'm very certain it's a troll.
Anywho, trolls, ogres, the werewolf thing, all of those, you see a bunch, and they're kind of just reskins of each other.
Yeah. There are some variations, but not too much.
Not too much. Speaking of reskins, there are, once you complete the game, or I guess even before a little bit.
You can do before, but they're very hard to beat before when you don't have
They're very hard to beat after.
Yeah. The Valkyries. Very appropriately hard because they are legendary warriors in Norse mythology. Basically, like, they've all been trapped the way they are by Freya. The whole story of that to me was kind of confusing, but there are 9 total. They're the 8 Valkyries. Once you defeat all of them and get their helmets, you take the helmets to their, like, court area, place all the helmets, and you fight the Valkyrie Queen, who has the moves of all the other Valkyries, a lot of strength, a lot of health.
Yeah, she can put you down in seconds.
Oh, absolutely. Especially if she gets the right hits, she can take you down.
Definitely the toughest boss fight, at least playing on normal, which is what I was playing on.
Yeah.
I had to do it probably over 10 times.
Oh, I did it more than that.
Oh, yeah?
I think it took me like 3 hours to beat her.
Wow.
Like 3 straight hours of just trying.
I buffed up with armor.
Oh, so did I. I had the armor that you get on Niflheim, which regenerates your health automatically, and I had like the whole set, which powers it more. And even then, it took me a while.
Yeah, I had the Niflheim armor.
I think initially that was the armor I had, but the Niflheim one, once again, the health regen, I was like, I couldn't do it, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna try to get the health regen armor, because I would always get close, but I would just run out of health, I would run out of healing items, and I would end up getting killed. So I was like, if that health regen just lets me survive one more hit, then I could do it.
Right. All in all, Valkyries were a great addition.
Great addition.
A post-game kind of quest.
Yeah, I would love to see them, hopefully not as bosses in future games, see their story kind of turn. Because Freya is their leader, that could cause a potential issue now that she hates us.
Yes, because she was the first Valkyrie to me.
Yeah. Aside from all the enemies, very few other characters in the game.
Right.
Really only 3 that I can think of. There's Brock and Sindri, who are the dwarf brothers. Hilarious. I love just every scene that they're in, their interactions with each other.
They provide a lot of comic relief. They're lighthearted. Every other part of the game is super serious.
Yeah.
And they really just tone it down.
Like very classic brothers arguing because one is neat, one is dirty. That's it. That's their story.
That's their shtick.
But they're also the 2 greatest craftsmen in the realms.
Of course.
They created Mjolnir. They created the Leviathan axe.
Right.
They
created all the armor.
They upgrade your weapons. They upgrade everything. Very fun characters. They also supply you with the fast travel.
Of course.
Stone.
Right, and they have their own arc.
And they have their own little side quest arc.
Right? Like your armors have a story arc.
Yeah.
That's a cool addition to the game.
Yeah.
And that's an example of how all these characters, how few there are, and you can make them all deep and interesting.
Yeah.
I really think that's what made this game so successful.
Yep. And then Jormungandr, the World Serpent. He's more like what you said earlier, where he's a set piece. He has moments in the story where he comes in, but he's not. Other than that, he's not really important for anything. He is, destined to fight Thor in Ragnarok.
Right. He is Loki's son.
He is Loki's son in the original.
He's from the future.
Yeah. Yeah, he's Loki's son.
He just appears one day.
Yeah. He's Loki's son originally. Also, in the temple at the end, when you see a glimpse in the future, Kratos is dead and Atreus is like screaming, and you see the World Serpent coming out of his mouth. So I assume that part of the World Serpent being Loki's son is still canon in the God of War games. But I think he's...
A lot of different theories on what that image is supposed to mean.
Yeah, by the way. Yeah, I assume he'll have bigger parts in future games. But as of now, he was cool, but he was just there.
He was cool. It was a nice set piece.
Yeah.
Because he's supposed to span the whole world, right? You just see him everywhere because he's so gigantic. In the Lake of Nine, eventually you go inside of him. Yeah. He's just really cool visually.
Yeah.
So, we did mention this is a soft reboot.
Yeah.
And with a soft reboot comes a new combat system.
Correct. This game abandons the fixed camera aspect of previous God of War games. You actually do have complete control over it, which is always something I would like. It's over the shoulder, so your field of view is smaller, because usually in the older games the camera was kind of out, so you could see kind of the whole area you were fighting in at once for the most part. You also get the Leviathan axe, which Kratos has never used an axe before that I can remember, and a shield, which there was one game where you had a shield, previously, but it was not obviously used to the extent of the shield in this game. And because of the shield, blocking and parrying are a bigger part of this game than previous games. You could always block and parry with, starting in God of War 2 when you get the Golden Fleece, you could parry, and blocking was always a thing, but it always made more sense to dodge rather than block in previous games, because your block could be broken very easily.
In the old God of War games, the methodology of combat was, never stop swinging.
Pretty much.
If you weren't swinging, you weren't winning. That's basically how the game was. And so you dodge and get up and keep swinging, and if you're blocking or trying to parry and mess up, you're losing time, health, and it's just a waste.
Mm-hmm.
This game the shield is great for blocking. It blocks, all attacks that aren't unblockable, and you can parry just about any attack.
The attacks you cannot block and cannot parry are the same category, which the enemy flashes red when they're doing the kind of build up to it. Usually they're slower, heavier attacks, so you have plenty of time to dodge. Like, I probably blocked more in this game, kind of held the block button, whatever, more in this game than in any other God of War game combined. Because in, other God of War games, I forget that there's even a block as a thing. Initially, when we, talked about this game, and I was looking into it, I was like, oh yeah, you can block in this game. You couldn't do that in other God of War games. And then I was watching a playthrough of one of the older games, and it was towards the beginning of the game when it was giving the controls and everything, and it mentioned blocking. I was like, oh man, you can't. I just forgot because I never did it.
Right.
Except in the moments when the game required you to do it, you had to parry a projectile back at someone or something. Also, one of my favorite things to do in this game is you could just chuck the axe at somebody.
Oh yeah, we haven't talked about the Leviathan axe specifically.
Yeah.
But visually it's just an axe, right?
It's a very beautiful axe.
It is beautiful, of course, but it just looks like an axe.
Correct.
And then he can throw it. He has two types of attacks, being heavy and light, which is the same as old God of War's. But when he throws the axe and uses the light attack, he just chucks it, and if he's the heavy, he, both hands, he chucks that bitch, he throws it real far.
Yeah.
And real hard.
And you can just get it back to you at the push of a button, and it is
right back.
Such a good system. It works so well.
And the sound of it flying, the sound of it coming back, and the thump of it hitting Kratos' hand. Oh man, whenever I was going up an elevator or something like that, the first thing I do is just start throwing the axe and calling it back, because it never gets tiring.
Yeah.
And the axe has frost as an elemental power, right?
Yeah.
And they did such a great job of implementing that into both puzzle solving and combat.
Yeah.
Because when you hit an enemy with it, they freeze. Right? And that frozen enemy stays frozen for depending on the type of enemy, however long that axe is in them. And you can go around punching the other guys and call the axe back whenever. And, in puzzles, you would use it to hold things in place or, something like that, or throw it to break stuff.
Yeah. You also, it's something I normally hate in games where you have someone else fighting with you and you just tell them what to do. And they just kind of, go do their own thing other than that.
Mm-hmm.
But in this game, I love the way it was implemented and done, in which you give Atreus commands to basically shoot the bow, and when you get magic arrows, you can, obviously do more damage, paralyze enemies with lightning arrows, and it takes time, for him to, reload or, get more arrows, and it was just very cool, just being able to, press a button, and he's like, boy, and shoots an arrow at whatever enemy you're locked onto.
It's definitely the most used word in the game, of course. And it was nice because the arrows, it was useful. That companion, I guess is the word for it.
Yeah.
Companion combat. In most games, it's I don't really need that. I'm doing fine on my own.
Yeah.
And in this game, that's true to an extent, but it really helps when you're being overwhelmed and you can just smash that square button.
Yeah, especially, I don't think it's square.
Oh, it was
it's like R1 or L1, right? The square's the attack button.
What?
Am I crazy?
You're crazy. R1 is light attack, R2 is heavy attack, square is arrow. Maybe we played with different controls.
I don't remember. I haven't played it in a while. But it was, it was especially useful to me later after you get like lightning arrows because those paralyze enemies, and you can upgrade it to like it paralyzes like a group of enemies like standing near the one you shoot. And that saved me so many times of just having that second to breathe of like, okay, no one's gonna swing at me for the next 2 seconds while they're all shocked, and give me just kind of like that moment to decide what I'm gonna do, back up, anything like that.
Something I really loved about this game was when you were hitting enemies, whether it's with the Leviathan Axe, the shield, your fist, the Blades of Chaos, or whatever, there is a heavy impact. Like, your enemies take that hit.
Yes, and they stagger, except in the hardest difficulty they don't. But that was always something I hated about the old God of War games, is your enemies did not stagger when they got hit, but you did.
Right.
Which just added a degree of difficulty to it, and could just be very annoying sometimes when you're like in the middle of a combo hitting a bunch of people, and while they're getting hit, one of them just swings at you and breaks it.
But I mean, it's something that just like, it made you feel so powerful and strong to just be like chopping through these enemies like they're nothing.
Yeah.
You know, it makes you feel like the God of War.
Yeah.
So it was like, I would describe it as immersive.
Yeah. You also get runic attacks, which you get 2 per weapon, light and a heavy. And those, they're like little like magic attacks, do like can either damage a lot of enemies, do a lot of damage to like an area, whatever. Very useful, very powerful.
Right, like you find them throughout the world, and there are a lot of them. Like, there was a lot. And you could upgrade each one as you got it, and they would just become more and more powerful as you upgraded them. And they were different per weapon you were using, whether it was the Leviathan Axe or the Blades of Chaos.
Yeah. You also get, for Atreus, an ability to summon animals to help you fight. Different animals that had different abilities, whatever.
Yeah, didn't really make sense as we were going through the game, like story-wise, like why he can do this. But looking back after discovering who he is, it makes a lot more sense, right?
I mean, one, I just really enjoyed the ability. It was very useful. I used it a lot, like any chance I could, pretty much. And it was just, it's just another tool to keep the combat interesting and fresh.
Did you have any specific animal you like to use?
Oh, I used the wolf the whole time, never changed. It's the first one you get, but it's the best one, in my opinion. 5.
Let me hit you with this one. I used Ratatosk.
Ratatosk?
Yes, Ratatosk. You might not know this, but Ratatosk, he is a squirrel god that lives in the world tree. The tree that connects all the realms.
Oh, that's the portal.
Yeah.
We were talking about that earlier. That's the portal.
The world tree. And connects all the realms, and Ratatosk lives in that tree. And he has an ability where he summons this squirrel, and it like basically finds items and stuff, and it'll find like healing and stuff like that.
Okay, so that seems like it'd be useful outside of battle.
Yeah, I never really used the animal summoning in battle. I just used the arrows, and but sometimes in battle, Ratatosk would find health, and I'd just be like, that can be life or death sometimes. It's one crystal to heal.
Oh, very true. I very much have experience to back that statement. I don't remember that one, but no, I used the wolves. I used them a lot. They were very useful, and especially when you get it upgraded to the max level, it just can do a lot of damage to a group of enemies.
Right.
You also get kind of like the ultimate mode that's in every game, like your limit break, pretty much.
Right.
Called Spartan Rage in this game, where you basically, you just use your fists, you attack very fast, and you just beat the shit out of people.
Right.
And you don't flinch when you are hit. You do still take damage, as I did not learn until fighting the Valkyrie Queen when she killed me. You also gain health with every hit you land. So it's something that I would only ever really use it when I was at low health and was like, I don't think I'm going to beat this battle. I don't have any healing items. I would use that, and like I would use that to basically be a way to build up my health.
That's interesting. I used it, I was pretty, I don't know what the word I'm looking for here is. I tossed it out there.
Like liberal?
I was pretty liberal with it. Every time I got it, I was just like, I'm mad, I'm raging up. Every single time, like, as soon as I would get it almost. Because it builds up decently quickly. Takes a few fights maybe, unless you're finding the red crystals for it. Like, especially if I'm fighting, like, mini-bosses like trolls and ogres and stuff like that, it just melts them.
Yeah.
So it saved me a lot. I use it as a time saver.
That makes sense.
Like, I don't want to waste my time on this big fight with all these enemies, so I'm just going to go into Spartan Rage and kill them very quickly and move on.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I didn't even know that it increases your health.
Yeah, I did, because that was something that, like, the most I used it was against the Valkyries. Because anytime my health would get low and I'm like, oh, I don't have healing items, like I'm out of healing items, which usually would be later in the fight, I would just turn that on.
I would use it at the beginning of the fight, and I would get it again before the end of the fight with almost every Valkyrie.
With the Valkyrie Queen, that was absolutely what I did. And it was very useful. Like, I never, in previous God of War games, used that, like, ultimate mode. Like, never used it.
No, in previous God of War games, you kind of only just stick with the blades. That's all you ever really need.
Yeah, like, I would use other weapons, but, like, specifically that mode, like, I would never use it to the point where, like, I'd forget that I had it. But this game made it, to me, much more usable, much more fun to use.
Right. So as we've alluded to the enemy types,
there are a lot of enemies in this game.
There are a lot of enemies in this game.
Yeah. The bestiary, which keeps track of all the enemies you encounter, has 71 entries.
Wow.
I do not remember if bosses are included in this. I think they are. But either way, of those 71, you really have maybe like 10 enemy types, and then there are just different variants of all those enemies.
Unique enemies.
Yes. Yeah, we kind of mentioned before, there's the trolls and the ogres. There's the ancients, which are like the large stone creatures with the like glowing chests that would fire lasers at you.
They were annoying.
They were annoying, but they were easy. It was a very simple pattern that you just would rinse and repeat until you killed them.
That's true, but there were a few times where it's just like I would be kind of out of sync with them.
Yeah, that would.
And they would just keep hitting me, and I would be struggling and be like, "Why am I struggling against this easy enemy?"
Yeah. The only other enemy that I feel was noteworthy in the game were the Revenants, which are kind of like those like banshee-like things that like float and like you hit them like once and they like teleport away. Yeah. I hated those enemies so much.
Those as well.
They were so annoying. Like, they were the one enemy that I was like, anytime I saw one, I was just instantly in like a bad mood of, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this fight. I just, can I skip it, please?
Right. Anytime I saw one, I would just be like, for a second, I'd be like, all right, here we go. But then I would jump into it, because I feel like by the end, I really learned how to deal with them. And especially like the electric arrows. I don't know if you figured that out, but the electric arrows really cut those bitches down.
Oh, that's basically what I would do. Anytime I encounter one, I would just electric arrow it. I never, in terms of like specifically using just Kratos, like I could never figure out a specific system to just get them down quickly. Like, it wasn't even necessarily that they would kill me really fast or anything like that. It's just the fight would always take forever because they would keep like moving around after you hit them.
It's not like they did a lot of damage. They would just like float away and spit at you. Yeah. And then that spit hits you, takes like 10 HP, and you're like, what the fuck? She spit at me! And you run after her, and she runs away. But that's about it.
Yeah.
Other than that, I love the Draugrs and the Reavers, like the basic enemy types, and the executions on them. The executions on everybody were amazing. When you get them low health, or you get their stun all the way up. Yeah. And you press R3, and he does an execution. Yep. Beautiful. And they killing every single, even the light enemies, so enjoyable.
Oh yeah,
I never got tired of it.
Yeah, the Draugrs are definitely a very iconic enemy. Other than combat, it's always a thing in God of War that I always just don't think about unless I start to really think about playing through a God of War game. Puzzle solving has always been a part of God of War games. This one to me was way better than all the others in puzzle solving because of the fact that you actually had more items-wise that could be used to solve puzzles.
Right. It wasn't just, like, moving stuff.
Yeah. Like, there were some items that you would use for puzzles in previous games, but this one, like, everything you got, everything in your arsenal could be used to solve puzzles, pretty much. Right. The axe, the blades, all of it.
All the different types of arrows.
It's like you said earlier, the Leviathan axe, you would break things, freeze objects. You had like you would throw them at the runes, break the runes to open the rune chest. you would also, like with the Blades of Chaos, you could grab like the energy of hell.
Oh,
and you would like have that for like 10 seconds. You'd have to take it like
right,
the different.
I forgot about that. That was kind of annoying sometimes.
Sometimes very annoying, but still a cool. It's like the Blades of Chaos never used in puzzle solving in previous games, and this one they were, and it was like I was like this. Okay, yeah.
Right. So Atreus being Loki, and him being able to like speak every language allowed him to solve the puzzles. He could read all the images and the walls and everything that you come across, and he had those sand puzzles.
Yeah.
Where you have to find the words or the runes, and he writes them in the sand.
Yeah.
And I thought it was pretty funny how Kratos would get like frustrated that he doesn't understand.
Yeah, it was very much like they made Atreus so important in this game because they gave him all these different avenues of being useful. Where it didn't just feel like you're doing like an escort mission, because he did help in combat, and Kratos cannot read anything in this world. He doesn't read that language. So Atreus has to basically read everything. Just another way to just make him required for the journey, make it feel like there's actually a reason that you're dragging him along the whole time.
Right. It just really felt like to me like Atreus is like the bilingual child, right? And Kratos, he did get frustrated here and there. Like, he was, because Atreus would be like, "Oh, right, you can't read that." Yeah. And Kratos was like, grumbles. And aside from that, you have the arrows, like shoot this, create a bridge, shoot that, and it explodes. So all in all, the puzzles in this game were all entertaining.
Yeah. You also had, as mentioned before, Muspelheim and Niflheim.
Yeah.
Muspelheim had the trials, just combat trials, in all the previous God of War games. They're fun. They seem to be easier in this game than in previous games.
Depending on the difficulty you're playing on.
Oh, well, of course. They were enjoyable. I had fun with them. It was it took me maybe an afternoon to play through all of them.
Yeah,
and it was
not
long,
but it was definitely worth it. But you had to play through it more if you're going for the armor.
Yeah.
That's why I leaned towards the Muspelheim one. I found that easier than the Niflheim. Maybe just me. I was better at the combat. Yeah, I was better at combat in general, whereas the Niflheim was like really about the time management, running through the poison.
Well, as you're saying, Niflheim, it's a labyrinth that is full of poisonous fog that slowly drains your... Well, it doesn't drain your health necessarily, but it drains like your constitution, so to speak. You had like a bar there that was like, if this gets all the way down, you're dead.
Right. It wasn't like your health went down when the bar went down. If the bar went down, you just died.
Yeah.
Right.
You would have to fight enemies and try to beat them as quickly as possible. You would have to find chests and open them, do blah, 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 bunch of stuff to get points that you could use to buy things in the center of the maze. I had to do it a lot to get everything in the center, which was required for trophies. I eventually got it down pretty well because, especially when you get the Niflheim armor, it allows you to take longer. It makes the poison affect you less.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yes, so I was able to, not even have to worry about running out of time at that point.
Yeah, that's annoying.
But going through the whole thing usually would take maybe for me, I think I got it done in 15 to 20 minutes. And I would get at least a few thousand points every time, but it still took a while.
I mean, once you go through that Niflheim maze, maybe say 5 times, 6, you really had a system.
Yeah, because it's different every time, randomized,
but
the enemies and the layout of it, the traps, but it's the same few traps, just the order they were in, and sometimes, not all of them were featured in every maze.
Right.
Those were different, but it's by the time you encounter every trap once, every other time after that, you know what you're doing.
You know what you're doing. You know how to deal with the trap. You know where the chests are hidden.
But it was fun. It was very tedious, but I enjoyed it.
I did enjoy it.
Yeah, the fun, 2 fun little things that I had no idea existed, but definitely enjoyed.
So then there's the side quests. One of those we mentioned earlier was
Brock and Sindri.
Brock and Sindri. Yeah. That's kind of a side quest.
Yep.
well, they send you on different side quests. You know, go here and get that for me, and I'll make you this.
Yeah.
But then there's also like freeing the dragons. There's Odin's ravens. There's stuff like that.
Yeah. There's freeing the dragons. Then you encounter ghosts that you do like quests for.
Oh right.
Not too many of them, but you know, none of them felt like a bother to do. All of them just like as I was exploring, getting everything, you would just do them. You know.
Right.
Like I didn't feel like I had to go out of my way to do any of them.
You were going that direction anyway, or it wasn't too far away. You know.
Yeah.
But there weren't that many side quests. I felt like there could have been more.
I felt like they had a good amount. Like when I beat this game, when I finished it, I felt like, all right, that was perfect. I am done. Like it didn't go drag on to a point.
It was a great game, but I'd always love more.
Yeah, but I always worry about potentially reaching the point of
too much. That's when you hit like Witcher vibes.
Yeah,
where it's like, oh my god, I have 300 side quests to do. And that's overwhelming. Yeah. You know, but if God of War 2, I guess is what we'll call it. You know, the next one, an improvement I would like to see is just make it bigger.
Oh yeah.
You know, I'd like the same thing. You know, all that stuff is fine.
Yeah, just a bigger scale.
Bigger.
Yep, that's it. You mentioned earlier the Odin's Ravens. Those are, you know, a collectible. This game has a lot of collectibles. 332 total. But it's kind of like everything counts as a collectible. Like the favors count as collectibles in like the game. This game was, to me, done well in their collectibles in that there are 332. It does not feel like that many.
It's not your Batman Arkham 250 Riddler trophies where you're like constantly aware that it's another Riddler trophy.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. There are a lot of different varieties. There's the favors, there's artifacts, gateways, the shops, lore markers, which are like little signs that Atreus can read that would give details on your location.
They're interesting.
The ravens, the Valkyries counted, the dragons, chests, a bunch of different things. The fact that there are so many different ones, I think, help with the fact that it doesn't feel like there are that many. And also, very, very, very few of these are like out of the way. Like, the ravens are the only things I had to use a guide to find.
Of course, and it's what there's the most of.
Yes.
They felt the most tedious collectible stuff.
Yes, absolutely. But, yeah, those were annoying, but the rest of them, like, I didn't need a guide for any of them. I just found them while exploring the game. And that, to me, is what makes, like, a good collectible game.
Yeah.
Is that I don't feel like I have to look them up. Because, you know, there are games, obviously, I play where it's like, I swear, I've scoured this entire area, I've looked everywhere, there is nothing I haven't seen, but I'm still missing 3 collectibles. That, to me, is when collectibles in a game become very, very annoying. And this game very much avoided that.
So, I mentioned before, I think I said the word immersion.
Yeah.
This game really was a step forward in gaming for immersion. And that is where developers use, like, tricks to trick you into being immersed into the world of the game. Like, the fact that the things you have to climb on and stuff like that, and, like, a path is almost painted. And it's left there by Faye, who planned out your entire journey. Yeah. But it's, you know, it's the developers being like, hey, idiot, climb here. But, you know, they make it as natural as they can in the world without breaking your immersion.
Yeah. Also, this is something that I did not notice while playing the game, which to me is just a sign of how well it was done, and really did not know until years, like at least 2 years after I played the game, when I was at our local mall, and a sign, like kind of like an electric sign that would just show, you know, commercials, whatever, different things, brought up a video of God of War, and I was like, why are they showing this? Like, that's weird. And it said, this little fun fact, that the entire game is a continuous shot. There are no camera cuts or loading screens at all, which I completely did not notice. And the second I read that, I was like I stopped and I thought about it, and I was like, oh my god, like, yeah, that's true. Like, I didn't even think about it.
Yeah, I've heard people call this, because this has popped up lately in like movies and stuff like that have been doing it, a continuous shot with no breaks. And people have called this gimmicky, but I don't think it's gimmicky at all. I really like the...
I can see calling it gimmicky in movies because movies don't have loading screens. Movies don't, like have to have wide panning shots so the rest of the movie can load. So it's a completely optional thing in movies. But in games, it's like, okay, do we have a loading screen here or do we have a wide shot of the area to give everything time to load? Mm-hmm. That's something that different game developers do. I mean, there have been dozens of ways game developers have hidden loading screens behind something like a door opening.
Right. There, door opening.
Yeah.
I definitely agree. And for instance, I've been playing through Prey.
Mm-hmm.
And every time you go from one area to another, there's a pretty long loading screen. And I just hit long enough for me to pull up my phone and like pull up something to do.
Yeah.
And that just really takes you out of the game.
Mm-hmm.
You don't like that. So making this a continuous shot, I really think it was a brilliant idea. And I hope it continues in the next game.
Oh, yeah.
I hope more games implement it.
Yeah, it really worked, and it definitely made the game so much more immersive. The fact that I didn't notice it, it's one of those things that when you can tell is good by how much you don't notice.
Yeah, if you didn't notice it, it did its job.
Yeah, like if I had, like even games that have loading screens, if the loading screens don't take a lot or there aren't a lot of them, I'll still be like, man, there weren't a lot of loading screens in this game, or oh man, like loading's pretty fast in this game. This, like, you don't even have those thoughts to take you out of it because it all just happens one right after another, no pauses, no breaks.
Mm-hmm. So when I said that developers are using these clever tricks into make you think, the game is immersive. A great example of that coming out very soon is Ghost of Tsushima. When you put a marker on a waypoint, there's no like HUD, there's no like point on a map that you look at the top like Skyrim or anything like that. It's the direction of the wind.
Oh, that's very interesting.
And I'm like, that's clever, right? Because anybody can just do that, and it just like takes that whole game break or like immersive breaking, the fourth wall. You're like, oh yeah, it's a video game. It's nice to not have that thought and be like just in this world.
Yeah,
And I hope developers just, I hope that just keeps getting better and better as games keep being made.
Yeah,
as it has been.
Yeah. So this game is on a very small list of games that we both, in our separate accounts, have the platinum for.
That's right.
There are games from early in our platinum days that we just got playing the game together, like Arkham City was one, right? Some of the early Lego game platinums that we have. But, then you broke off and got your own separate account because you were tired of living in my trophy hunting shadow.
That's why.
Absolutely. And you really didn't care about trophies for a long time. And even now, it's like, I wouldn't say you do too much.
My methodology with trophies is much different than yours. Your logic is like, I love the trophies, I need them. Mine is like, if I think the game is worthy of getting the platinum, I will get the platinum.
Yes.
So like MK, I have the platinum in that. God of War, Arkham Knight, I think I might. I'm not sure. But those types of games that I love and adore, like Assassin's Creed Odyssey, you don't have a lot of those that I have.
I don't have like those specific games.
No. Like the platinums I have are different than the platinums you have.
Yeah.
Mostly. I think I got the platinum in Mad Max, which is a game that I love, and we will talk about eventually.
I'm gonna cut this out. No Mad Max in my podcast. No.
Welcome to the Mad Max podcast.
No, I'm never playing it.
It is
never gonna happen.
Fantastic game. You're gonna play it because
I'm not gonna play it. I'm not gonna play it. God of War is a great game, and we both have the platinum in it. There are no trophies to me that stood out as like, oh yeah, this one is super special, because they're all just like do things that any completionist would do, or anyone who just enjoys the game would probably do anyway.
Right, there's no standout trophies.
Yeah, really. Absolutely. But we both have the platinum in this one, which is very small list.
You had to beat Valkyrie Queen, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, that's a pretty tough one.
Yeah, but I felt like it's something that
Technically, we could have put it on easy mode.
Yeah, but it's like, yeah, the Valkyries are iconic, but it's not something that would wait until this point in the conversation to be mentioned, because we talked about the Valkyries when we talked about the Valkyries.
Oh, yeah, of course. But I mean, like, we would have done that whether or not there was a trophy.
Oh, absolutely. It was fun.
It's a notable trophy if it's something you would do for the trophy.
Yeah. Yeah. So this game, not too heavy on Easter eggs. The big one, at least to you, I feel like, would be the Infinity Gauntlet.
Yes. I played, I don't know the timing of God of War versus Infinity War, but the inclusion of the Infinity Gauntlet, I didn't even know about until after I played the game, because I just don't, I don't look at all those collectibles, all those rooms and whatnot you get.
Yeah.
But the Infinity Gauntlet, if you didn't know, there's an Easter egg in God of War for the Infinity Gauntlet. It's called the Shattered Gauntlet of Ages. It's a nod to the Infinity Gauntlet. The animation closely resembles Thanos' movements, like when he uses the ability. You can upgrade it with all 6 Infinity Stones. They have adapted names. You can find them throughout the realms.
Yeah, and I think you can only use 3 at once, though.
You can only use 3 at once, and when you have 3 of any kind, it has the same effect no matter what.
Yeah.
But that's still like a really cool Easter egg to put in.
Yeah, I didn't know this until after I'd already beaten my game and everything, because I think when I got this item, I saw it, I was like, oh, this isn't as strong as the gauntlets I have now, and I just sold it.
Right.
Like, that
I
was
probably
it. Like,
did that too, because I'm like, it doesn't have the green up thing. No, gone.
Yeah, that's how I do it.
Yeah, that's how I do it.
And yeah, but it was something that afterwards when I saw it, I thought, oh man, wish I would have kept that.
Right. I was like, if I noticed that, I would have thought that was cool, but damn. Oops.
Yeah. I guess the other big one is here. He has all of his little nods to other different mythologies. Yes. There's Egyptian, there's Celtic, Japanese, Mayan.
Yeah.
Pretty much all of them.
Yeah, Tyr is so mysterious in what he is supposed to be representing.
Yeah, I don't know if he's dead or not, but
there's theories that Kratos is Tyr, by the way.
I know that.
There's theories. I'm telling you. I'm not saying this is Corey Barlog confirmed this. No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying there's theories. And because Kratos at this point has traveled between realms. And that's kind of Tyr's whole thing.
Yeah, the whole thing with Tyr is like he's such a respected god that like he's revered by all, like every society.
Right.
And he has all those things in his vault, including, like a vase with Kratos on it. And that whole thing was just very interesting to me. To me, it, if anything, opened the door to possibilities of there always being God of War games in these other different mythologies.
Which I support 100%. I'm like, take my money. I will play Japanese God of War. I will play Mayan God of War. I'll play all of them.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I don't know if they'll be as Kratos or Atreus or a future character or whatever.
Who knows?
They're really just setting it up to be like, hey, we can do whatever we want.
Pretty much.
And I'm cool with that.
Yeah.
I don't want to question that too much. You mentioned Magni and Modi being Nolan North and Troy Baker, which we didn't discover until way after we played the game.
I didn't discover until I read the note you left for me.
Oh, that's funny. Credit to their voice acting, right?
Yeah.
Because we had no idea.
Yeah.
Obviously, most people who are listening to this probably know who Nolan North and Troy Baker are, renowned voice actors, right? Yeah. And then I did want to talk about how, throughout the game, this game does an excellent job of very light foreshadowing and surprising you with that foreshadowing, right? Because I was surprised about who Freya was. I was surprised, even though like she kind of says things all the time. And I was surprised about her being Boulder's mom, and I was definitely surprised about...
Oh, so you mean Faye? No, you're talking about Freya. Sorry.
Yeah. I was, but Faye too,
Faye being Atreus' mom, that's what I was thinking of.
She also has another giant name, and she just happens to be the giant that Mimir tells stories about.
Yeah.
Right? Am I wrong about that?
I don't know.
Okay.
He tells a lot of stories about a lot of giants.
Yes, that's true, but Atreus being Loki is hinted at so many times throughout the game.
Yeah, just by nothing else than just the abilities he has. the fact that Loki is nowhere mentioned or anywhere in this game.
He is mentioned. The only times that Loki is mentioned is in the mirror stories, right? Doesn't he mention it?
I don't know.
You don't know?
I don't remember.
Well, maybe never by name. Because I thought he said that Jormungandr was the son of Loki.
I don't remember. I just know that he hates Thor.
Okay, because I thought that's how we learned that Jormungandr was the son of Loki, because how else would we know that?
That's fair.
So I really feel like that's how that happened. The fact that Atreus can talk to Jormungandr, and Jormungandr says he knows who Atreus is, and stuff like that. And at the time, we're like, what the fuck is going on here? Why? I don't understand that. And you just kind of like glance over it and be like, yeah.
Well, to me, I just assumed like it's Jormungandr. He probably knows things.
Right. And then find out that all these stories about Ragnarok and how, the god of mischief plays such a huge part in it.
Yeah.
And it ends up being Atreus.
Yeah.
Atreus is Loki. And you spend the whole game being like, okay, yeah, cool, Thor, Odin, but where is Loki?
Mm-hmm.
I feel like especially after the Marvel movies and stuff really build up a fan base for this character.
Yeah.
And so I really am interested.
Yeah, it's like, some people say that Tom Hiddleston and Atreus look alike.
Who says that? Nobody. But adult Atreus voiced by Tom Hiddleston.
I don't think that would be good at all.
You don't think so?
No, I think I feel like they would never do that because they don't want it to be associated with
the Marvel. Yeah, that would be a problem.
And two, I can't imagine hearing Tom Hiddleston talk in the God of War world. Like, I don't think anything would take me out of it more than that.
Right, of course. But I'm very interested to see where they take that.
Yeah.
Because I really have absolutely no idea what to expect for the next game.
Yeah. All right. So, do final thoughts.
Right.
Favorite boss battle?
Mine had to be Boulder, the last one, where you're fighting Boulder, and then like Freya is controlling the giant behind you,
the giant corpse,
and that's just so amazing to look at. I loved it, and Kratos and Atreus fighting together.
Magni and Modi. I just absolutely love that boss fight. Just 100%.
Yeah, it was fun.
Just been constantly insulting Atreus' mom.
Right, and you really felt Modi's distraught and fear when Kratos just brings that axe down into Magni's head.
Yeah, he is.
And I'm always like, what did you expect? You were trying to kill us. We're not going to go easy on you. You know?
Favorite moment?
Favorite moment. That is, for me, it's definitely a tie between Boulder's first punch. Like, I've watched, I'm not gonna lie about this, I've watched compilations of reactions.
I've done the same thing at that moment.
People reacting to that because it's so hilarious, because they're always like, when Boulder backslaps Kratos, they're like, oh, this man's about to get it. And then when Boulder punches Kratos, they're all like, what the and I'm like, I had that exact same emotional train going on when I played through that.
Yeah, big one for me would probably be the moment when, like, basically, very long scene, but basically the entire scene right after the last fight against Baldur, with Kratos leaving him alive, and then him choking Freya, Kratos killing him, telling Atreus his past. A very powerful scene. I just love so much. I've rewatched that scene at least probably 20 times.
Right. Then there's Thor in the end. His little cutscene.
Yeah, very cool. Like when he like pushes like his robe back, like cloak back, and there's the hammer there. I was like, oh.
Yeah. What that did was shoot my excitement through the roof, and then I had to sit there and be like, well, that'll be fun in 3 years.
Yeah. Probably more than 3.
Probably more than 3. But you know what I mean.
Anything you didn't like?
Anything I didn't like? Some of the reskins of the mini bosses got a little bit tedious, but it wasn't too bad.
Yeah.
Not as bad as, a lot of other games. And Atreus when he was a bitch.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess my big thing was the Ravens. They were just annoying.
The Ravens were annoying.
Like those were the only thing that like I felt like it was a grind as I was doing it.
Yes, I felt like that too. I had to watch many walkthroughs of like, I even like struggled finding certain.
Oh yeah, I had the same thing.
I had to watch like many different walkthroughs because people didn't like record right angles. Yeah. They would just be like standing there and throw the axe, and I'm like, where is that? Like, show me how you got there.
Where are you standing?
Right.
Like, I'm not watching this guy to see how to throw an axe at a bird.
Right. If I can see the raven, I would do that. But and then the fact that the sequel's not announced, obviously.
Not officially, I suppose.
No, not. I mean, we all know.
Everyone knows it's happening. When that announcement trailer is released, then we can erase that reason.
Of course. Hopefully, I'm hoping for an announcement this year. Fingers crossed.
Yeah,
with a release date next year.
I would say.
You think that's optimistic?
I would say I would not expect it out before 2022.
You don't know.
I would say early 2020. Like this one came out in January of 2018. I would expect January of 2022. That's my best case scenario guess.
All right.
Well, that's all I have to say. All right. Go ahead and subscribe to this podcast if you like hearing us talk about games. And other than that, we'll see you guys next game.
See ya.